The 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 3:30 City Council meeting of November 17th, 2021. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
I am here.
Councilmember Freeman. Councilmember Gray.
Here.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you. If you're here to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and give it to the city clerk. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per topic. Please keep your comments to the 3:30 agenda items. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, please give them to the clerk, who will give copies to the council. We're very interested and concerned with your issues. However, due to the public notice requirement of the Brown Act, the council can't take action when an item isn't on the agenda. The council can, however, refer your matter to committee or request that staff contact you. Please avoid any behavior that disrupts the meeting, such as repetitive statements, going off topic, shouting, surpassing the 3-minute time limit. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers?
Mayor Go, we have received 0 speaker cards.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 4A under reports, presentation by IBI Group on Downtown Corridor Enhancement Streetscape Master Plan.
Thank you. Mr. Clegg.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll invite Stuart Pattison, our Acting Public Works Director, to kick this item off.
It's on. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, members of the Council. Stuart Pattison, Acting Public Works Director. We're here today, this afternoon, to provide a presentation on the recently completed Downtown Corridor Enhancement Master Plan. For a little background, we have with us today and the firm that prepared the master plan, IBI Group. The summer of 2020, Public Works Department issued a request for qualifications to select a firm to prepare the master plan. IBI was selected out of several firms that submitted as the most qualified firm to prepare the master plan. And in September 2020, City Council approved an agreement with IBI Group to prepare the master plan. Little background about them. IBI Group is a global organization doing projects all over the world. They're essentially urban planners and other design professionals. These are their core services. As you can see, we pretty much implemented and used all of these except, I would say, interiors. There wasn't any interior design work per se, but pretty much all the rest of these disciplines were used in the master plan. This is just a list of some of the resources they have available to them and the various disciplines that they practice in. And this is the team, the IBI team that worked on the master plan. The core team, we have with us today Dave Nicholas, who is the lead on the project and the project manager for the master plan, as well as Joe Clark, architect, and Jen Moore, who is urban designer and a licensed landscape architect. And with that, I want to introduce Dave to come up and take it from here.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Stuart, and hello, Mayor and members of the Council. It's Dave Nicholas, IBI Group. It's a pleasure to see you. Thanks for the time today. We'll try and be brief. I wanted, on behalf of Jen and Joe and myself and the entire IBI team, say thank you. Thank you for the honor to participate in this process. It's been phenomenal. It's hard to believe we've done it entirely under COVID protocols, but that's a testament, I think, to the city staff, their endurance, their dedication, and our ability to have meetings technologically and virtually. But it's been a tremendous process. But we wanted to mention this is an amazing investment that you're making in your community with this process. Streetscape enhancements typically are looked at, as beautification, maybe not critical, but we see this as very critical to the livability, the economic vitality, and the image and identity to the city in the long term. And we believe this document and this master plan lays out the groundwork for that to be applied over time. So a quick overview of the master plan itself. It's a 112-page document. We try and make these as user-friendly, as graphic-oriented as we can so that they're exciting to read and they inspire, but provide great guidance for design and engineering of the corridor enhancements throughout the downtown area. We've simplified this, and included in this document is basically 4 sections, 3 sections that are really the meat of the document, and the 4th section just being the summary of public outreach. The overview is what it is, but section 2 and 3 are really the guiding principles as well as the toolkit that we want to move forward with. Again, this is an abbreviated presentation of the information that is in the document itself, but the purpose really is a continuation of the Making Downtown Bakersfield vision. This is an outcome of that, and it's a next step in the image, identity, beautification, and corridor enhancements of the downtown area. So the goals and the community values that were established in that Making Downtown Bakersfield project are the leading, guiding goals and objectives of this project. And then we dove deeper through workshops and staff input and defined project objectives for this particular project. And those range anywhere from comfort and convenience to consistency and so forth. We also leveraged that Making Downtown Bakersfield plan to emphasize and continue to look at this idea of districts and nodes in the downtown area. Those are emerging, and they always will over time, but that's important to recognize. And you can let the streetscape and the corridor enhancements actually reflect these districts and nodes, and they can take on kind of a special character, if you will, in those particular areas. There's inspiration behind this to make this Bakersfield. So the heritage and history of the community is really brought into the design components in selecting materials and standards and patterns and so forth. So the music, the agricultural, and the railroad history is all brought into this and is reflected actually in some of the guiding standards and some of the objectives as well as the applications. The section 2 is really about guidelines. It really defines the anatomy of a streetscape. It's not just the sidewalk. We know that it serves so much more. And when we boil it down and simplify it into a simple street zone, travel zone, and building zone, just to try and make it as simple as possible to understand. And then we define each one of those, what goes in each one of those, and what the principles are behind each one and the functionality of each one. We define the components of streetscape, and in this case, really, there's 3 main components we highlight. That's the hardscape, which actually defines the softscape also. The vertical elements that become the 3-dimensional aspects of the spatial relationships and the experiential qualities. And then the furnishings, which really add the color, creature comforts, the attractiveness to the environment. This is just one example of the design toolkit, and this is the street zone. And in the street zone, we actually define, the street zone is the area between the back of curb and the travel zone. And it's really the most complicated because it serves the most purposes. It can include seating and furnishings, it can include public art, and a lot of aspects in there, street trees, so forth, lighting, and so on. It also defines typical appropriate and applicable standards for paving patterns and materials. In this case, in order to customize it to Bakersfield, we actually looked at music and the sound waves of music and the sounds of Bakersfield to inspire a paving pattern in that street zone. So the idea is standardize and make it constant, so there's a constant hum throughout the pattern of the streetscape throughout the downtown area, but customizable so that it can become known as Bakersfield, and it can be kind of customed to Bakersfield. The plan also includes a pretty significant component to planting design with a lot of really important components to environmental quality into that. So it defines a streetscape palette of plant materials and where those plant materials should be applied. But there's some significant components here from a water conservation standpoint, making sure that we've taken care of soil conditions so that we have great growing conditions for long-term health, and really looking after the urban tree canopy as best we can. The plan looks at typical corridor treatments and looks at street tree planting and pattern and so forth, and how the arrangement of those should be applied. And again, these are flexible, and we all know site conditions or development, proposals can change each condition, but so there's flexibility built in here. But the street tree pattern is one thing to think about. We've actually identified zones of the street tree patterns and where they actually relate to land use patterns and street patterns as well. And then for each kind of corridor, there is a cut sheet here of typical treatments for vehicular realm as well as the pedestrian realm. So these are kind of the standards that get laid out so that designers and engineers, as projects come down the line, they can follow these standards and apply them as appropriate, and look at the sample, of urban conditions as well as non-urban conditions for bulb outs at intersections and so forth. Just wanted to touch quickly on the public outreach. That was an extremely fun and rewarding process for us. Anywhere from online surveys, you see on the left, we had several public workshops with stakeholders and city staff. There was almost 600 responses on the online survey, which we felt was tremendous input. And then the workshops were very interactive online, but provided a lot of great direction. And just a few miscellaneous things that the document covers. Again, public art we know is very important to the DNA here, and we also think it's a very important part of the public realm. So the investment and bringing in public art, or at least encouraging public art as a part of this process, was important. Signage and wayfinding and monuments and gateways is covered in the document, as well as some things like pocket parks and plazas where potentially there's some public land along these corridors that could be turned into key community assets along the way. On the right here is the street tree component that I talked about, relating street tree rhythm to the actual streetscape layout and the grid pattern that are in these zones, creating different zones that actually we apply different street tree patterns to. So again, very rhythmic, thinking about pattern and the overall context. In addition to the master plan, city staff asked us to apply these guidelines and standards to the Chester Avenue and 8th Street corridors from Truxtun to SR 58. So we went one step further in this process. We actually took the document, and as designers and engineers, we applied these as we felt appropriate in that corridor. We don't need to go into the detail of these, but this will be the next step as we look to implement, these standards and guidelines in enhancement of corridors. So that was Chester, and this is 8th Street from Truxtun to SR 58. So again, we want to thank you for the honor and opportunity to really participate in this. We're excited for the next phase, and we can't wait for it to come to fruition. And again, a great guiding document for the future of the community and adding value to from a livability and economic sustainability standpoint. So happy to answer any questions, or Stuart, if you want to add anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much, Mr. Nicholas, and to your whole team and to the Public Works team for all their work on this document. I appreciated our time together a few weeks ago reviewing this, and I'm certainly excited. I think this is a long time coming. I think I will echo your sentiments. I think this is a great step forward for the city of Bakersfield. I'm excited about our strategic step forward of focusing on Chester Avenue. I think that will be I think that's a smart first step, considering it is such an iconic part of the downtown core. And some of the elements that I just want to lift up is, earlier today, I participated in a downtown symposium where many of our business leaders, property owners, civic leaders communicated and shared different ideas about about downtown Bakersfield. And the idea of street trees came up several times. People want to see a shade canopy in downtown. People want to walk downtown. They want to walk from their home or from work to a cafe, to a restaurant. They want to get out and walk. They don't want to drive and get in a car and then park somewhere else, another part of downtown. They want to walk. And in order for us to encourage more walkability, we ought to be planting more trees and adding additional street lighting. And so I appreciate that that's a really important component of this plan. And then the other thing I'd like to thank you on, and glad that you pointed out, is the need for more public art and the need for the city to really take that into consideration as we talk about the quality of life of our community and the important aspect that that public art brings to the quality of life in our community. I think that's an important piece and something that I like to continue to talk about from the dais. So again, thank you so much. With that, I'll make the motion to receive and file.
Thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, very exciting, and it's good to see, all this stuff, and we hope it gets built. I'd just like to reinforce people always ask for more walkable, more bikeable communities, and it gets into the details, what's those cross sections really look like? How wide's the sidewalk? Is there a bike lane? How wide's the bike lane? And these streets, Chester and H, are important. So I'm hopeful that both of those streets will be bicycle friendly and walkable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. I don't see any other requests for comments. So with that, do you have a motion? Please cast your votes. Thank you very much, Mr. Nicholas.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Parlier absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item 5A under closed session, conference with legal counsel, potential litigation regarding assertions by Security Paving Company, Inc. of monies owed by the city for the Beltway Operational Improvements Project.
Thank you.
Motion to move to a closed session.
We're moving to closed session. Reconvening at 4:31, Madam City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. There was one item on closed session, and by a vote of 6-0 with Councilmember Parlier absent, the city attorney was given direction. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we're adjourned at 4:31.